It's me, the Junkman, to tell y'all about Pac-Man. Yes, today we're going to talk about Pac-Man and look at some vintage Pac-Man merchandise. Some really weird stuff out there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, if you grew up in the 80s, you know how popular Pac-Man was. It was huge. It was Pacmania. It was the Beatles of the 80s. And now, kids today are probably thinking, what? It's just a character from a video game. How popular could it be? This was like the first breakout video game character that was a superstar. Sure, you had Pitfall Harry, but I think that might have came a little later, right at the same time. No one cared about Pitfall Harry, at least not as much as Pac-Man. And you had video games before Pac-Man, but who's going to really get excited about that character from a venture? It was just a square dot. And sure, Pong was fun, but no one was buying Pong merchandise. At least, I hope they wasn't. Pac-Man was huge. You had toys, you had clothes, you had a cartoon series, you had a hit song. When it comes to one of the biggest things of the 80s, Pac-Man has to be very close to the top of that list. So we're going to look at some Pac-Man merchandise, and I broke it down into 5 different categories where I'm going to look at 5 things from each category. The first category we're going to look at is video game related. This is where you could take home a part of Pac-Man, play at home. It was always advertised like the hit arcade game. Now you can play it at home. Now, I'm not going to mention the Pac-Man Atari 2600 game, because I think we all talked about it to death. So I wanted to give you something a little bit more fresh. There was no reason to add that to the category. Another category we're going to look at is books. PacMan Books. That's right. They made books based on Pac-Man. Somehow they did it, and they were a lot of fun. And then we're going to look at Pac-Man school supplies. Yep, this was your way to go to school and show people you had love for Pac-Man. It was always great to bring your Pac-Man stuff to school. And then we're going to look at 5 toys from Pac-Man. That's right, these are all toy related and related to Pac-Man. And then I got one more special category that's just weird stuff. Stuff that go like, what? Or just strange when it comes to Pac-Man. They were throwing Pac-Man's name on anything, so we'll take a look at that. Now, are you ready to look at playing Pac-Man games at home?
Behold, I am Pac-Man!
Some people still love Pac-Man today, I guess. So let's look at video game related Pac-Man stuff. Starting with this one right here. It was probably, when you saw it in the store, you're like, okay, this looks like I can play Pac-Man at home. It looks better than that Atari 2600 game. Well, that was probably until you opened it out of the box, put batteries in it, and saw it really wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be. Check this out. This portable video game looked a little odd for a game system. It kind of had a Pac-Man look for it. I can't think that's where they were going for, but it kind of doesn't look like Pac-Man. Just looks like they're trying to make it look like Pac-Man. I'm not really sure. But as you can see, the viewer screen is square. So when you turn on the video game to play Pac-Man, sure, it's a maze and everything, but it doesn't look like the arcade game. This one's stretched across. And that's the thing about the Pac-Man game. If you want to play it at home, you wanted that original feel, that original arcade. And you just didn't get it with this one right here. Now I think when it comes to bringing that arcade system into your house, this was probably the best one. I guess. I never had it. I can remember wanting this thing so bad. I would ask any adult I could, or hell, anyone with a job, I would ask about this thing. I'd try to get it. But the thing is, I don't think I remember seeing it at the store. I just saw commercials for it. But this was the little arcade. It looks like the Pac-Man arcade machine. That's what you loved about it so much. Now, the screen technology just wasn't what it is today, so everything was red. It wasn't that bad red like the Nintendo VR. Whew, remember that Virtual Boy? Whew, my eyes still bleed sometimes thinking about that. But this one was a red screen, LED screen, but it was kind of fun. But again, for the most part, you had almost an arcade look. Now these were called tabletop games, I guess because you could put them on top of a table and play them. As you can see here, it has that arcade look to it, but the screen's really red. It doesn't have a Pac-Man look to the screen. And although the Pac-Man character is there, it's lacking the feel of the ghost. But for my money, I believe this was the best way to play Pac-Man at your home. What about a Pac-Man game that's just not related to the video game? It's just Pac-Man inside of a ball. This is kind of like a puzzle game, which was really popular in the 80s because you had Rubik's Cube around the same time being a huge hit. So you had to have something Pac-Man related. This looks more like a toddler toy. It looks like something you would give a toddler so he could shake and chew on. But no, it's a Pac-Man toy. You just have to shake it around and get your balls in Pac-Man's mouth. As a kid, we loved putting our balls in Pac-Man's mouth. Shake him, shake him, shake him, shake him, shake him, shake him. Put your balls in his mouth. Here it is, PacMan Panic. Oh God, it's such a panic. You gotta shake this little ball around, the Pac-Man spins, and you gotta try to get these balls into his mouth without popping out. I tell you, between this and Mr. Bucket, we have balls popping out of our mouth every day.
I'm Mr. Bucket. Toss your balls in my top. I'm Mr. Bucket. Out of my mouth I will pop. I'm Mr. Bucket. We're all gonna run. I'm Mr. Bucket.
The game's Mr. Bucket. The first to get their balls into Mr. Bucket wins, but look out, because the balls will pop out of his mouth.
Now, of course, I showed you something I wanted and didn't have. I'm going to show you something I did have. I could not wait to get this. I remember getting the Sears catalog or one of those catalogs, circling it, thinking about it. I think I saw a commercial for it. I couldn't wait to Christmas to get this so I could take it to school. Teachers teaching math? I'm not paying attention. I'm playing Pac-Man. It was one thing to bring Pac-Man home and play it on top of a table, but this meant you could play Pac-Man anywhere. Pac-Man on the go. Anywhere you went, you could play Pac-Man. And it was all right here on your wrist. A PacMan Watch. There was two versions. One, did I say virgins? There was two of them. One that came with a joystick. I never saw that one. I didn't even know about that one until I was older. That's kind of cool. The one I had was push button. And just didn't live up to the hype. I can remember sitting in class trying to sneak a game of Pac-Man. It was just too hard to play, and I think within a week I was tired of it. I still wore it so I could show my love for Pac-Man, but other than that, it just wasn't that fun. But here it is, the PacMan Watch. I do love the look of this thing. I ain't gonna lie to you. If I saw this thing at a toy show or on eBay, I would buy it. I would wear this today. Looks better than those smart watches. As you can see, it shows you the time and has Pac-Man to play. Again, the board doesn't really look like the arcade game, something that was lacking in most video games at this time. Now, one of my goals for this channel is to always make you say, oh, Junkman, I forgot all about that. And sometimes it even happens to myself. While researching this video, I came across a Pac-Man game that I forgot all about. By the time I saw it, it just triggered something in my memory banks where I can remember in my room, being little, early 80s, playing with this thing at night when I was supposed to be sleeping, getting ready for school. I would stay up, which I thought was really late, probably 11 o'clock at the latest, playing this thing. And it doesn't look that fun, but God, I have such fond memories of playing this. I can't believe I totally forgot about it. Check it out. Now, I don't know the technical name for this, so I'm going to call it the Pac-Man marble game. You spin the wheel at the top, it releases a marble, and it works its way down the bottom, and you have to use your Pac-Man to catch it in its mouth. Yeah, another toy where you had to put balls in Pac-Man's mouth. Again, it's the 80s. We loved trying to catch balls with our mouth. Now, I know this isn't like much, but believe me, it was awesome. I love this thing. And again, I totally forgot all about it. It was a lot of fun. That thing was a lot of fun. I wonder if I can find a thing on eBay. I wonder what it's worth today.
If you've never played Pac-Man before, it's a little something like this.
Well, you could do more than just play Pac-Man. You could also read Pac-Man. And let's look at 5 books released during the early 80s of Pac-Man. Here's one of these read-along books that came with a record. You know, you could turn to page when. So you get to see Pac-Man, you get to hear Pac-Man, and you get to read Pac-Man. I don't remember having this one, but if I did, I only did the see and the hear part. I'm sure I didn't read it. But it's Pac-Man Run for Fun. There was a couple of these in the series, but this was the stupidest looking cover, so I'll pick this to talk about. Run for Fun. Hey, that's what Pac-Man does. He runs for fun. Although, whenever they bring him into cartoon form, they always give him legs and arms. He didn't have that on the video game. When most kids heard the word book, they thought, oh, I gotta read. But sometimes books were fun when it was an activity book. And here's a Pac-Man activity book. This thing was full of a lot of good fun. Mazes, word searches. It was all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of fun. I ain't gonna sit here and talk 20 minutes about it because it's just an activity book and you can kind of guess what it is. When it comes to Pac-Man books, this one was a huge seller. Everyone wanted this book so they could look really cool at the arcade. Why? Because it taught you how to master Pac-Man. With this book, you could eat all 9 keys. Hell, you probably could even see a Pac-Man kill screen. But here it is, Mastering Pac-Man. Now I had this book. Yes, I did. I had this book. And even reading it, I could never remember how to do Pac-Man. It shows you the pattern of Pac-Man. There was a certain way you could do each board, but I could never do it because I have to read the book and then go to the arcade. And by the time I got to the arcade, I already forgot what it was telling me. If I could have took the book to the arcade and done it there, maybe so. But I didn't want to be that guy. Here I am at Showbiz Pizza. Everyone's lined up to play the hottest game in town. And I pull out a book and try to read the book and play the game at the same time. No, I'm not that rude. And then there are some books that you just kind of didn't make any sense. This was a book on how to draw. How to draw Pac-Man. Drawing Pac-Man and even the ghost from Pac-Man might be the two easiest things to draw. I can't even draw a stick man, but I can draw Pac-Man and a ghost. That's just so simple. Pac-Man's just a circle with a pie taken out of it. But you can see here, they had a book to teach you how to draw Pac-Man. According to the byline of the book, it's the only book that teaches you how to draw Pac-Man. Again, I don't know what's so hard. Pac-Man's easy, the ghosts are easy. The dots, come on, they're dots. The maze. I guess to make the maze look just like a video game, that might take a little work. The cherry can't be that hard to draw. Even the keys are kind of simple. But when it comes to books, there was one that I loved the most. I thought this was the funniest book I ever read. I can remember getting this at the school book fair, getting home to read it, loved it so much, the following year I bought the sequel to it. Yep, let's talk about the greatest book ever written, Pacmania. This book was full with 96 Pac-Man jokes. All it was Pac-Man in a shape, and they would make a funny name out of it. It's pretty cheesy now, but at the time I thought this was one of the funniest things I ever read. Like this here, you have Pac Pocket. I don't even get that one. Soft Pac, I guess it means soft Pac-Man. Again, I don't know why I thought this was so funny. Pac-Man eating humble pie. Why's that humble pie? And this one, I can actually remember this one in the book laughing at it. Pac in the shade again. Just Pac-Man wearing a cowboy hat. I guess it means in the saddle again. They could have came up with something more funny. Sure, that's PacMan Books, but let's talk about the day you could bring Pac-Man to school with Pac-Man supplies. The teacher said, don't bring toys to school, but you could if you disguised them like Pac-Man erasers, pencils, stuff like that, because it's not really a toy, it's something you're going to need for school. Check these out. First, you have the Pac-Man notebook. You had to have the Pac-Man notebook if you were a Pac-Man fan. Inside is just white pages, nothing for me to talk about here. It was just a way to look at Pac-Man in school without getting in trouble. And even Pac-Man makes mistakes, and you could clear up those mistakes with Pac-Man erasers. But if you were like me, you didn't want to mess your erasers up. So you just kept them in your Pac-Man pencil bag. Remember these? You put your pencils and crayons and erasers or whatever in them. It has a pocket on it so you can put your loose change in it. And where would you put that? Well, you could put it inside your Pac-Man backpack. I had this Pac-Man backpack. Did I take it to school? No, I can remember getting this, asking my parents for it, got it for school. Then I was kind of too embarrassed to wear it to school, which really didn't make any sense because I did go to school with this. Pac-Man lunchbox. And I know I had a couple of Pac-Man shirts. I don't know why the bag made me embarrassed, but the lunchbox didn't. Really doesn't make much sense.
Pac-Man? No, Clyde tried to bite Pac-Man. Clyde bite Pac-Man! Why Clyde bite Pac-Man?
Well, let's say you got home and your brother and your sister were playing your Pac-Man video games, so you had to just go to PacMan Toys. And there were a lot of Pac-Man toys to pick from. Like this one right here, PacMan Color Forms. Now, I've never taken acid. I've never had an acid trip. I've never had an acid flashback. But looking at this board, I think I kind of know what it feels like to have an acid trip. But this was PacMan Color Forms. And you know the rule, if it's color forms, it's fun. I know that wasn't their slogan, but it should have been. And then you had the PacMan wind-up toys that had a little ghost in its mouth. I like that. It was a nice little feature. And there was never no technically action figures, but we did have these rubber figures that not only gave us Pac-Man, gave us Miss Pac-Man, and gave us the ghost. Probably the most fun about all these toys is the Pac-Man ball. This is kind of like those stress balls. You squeeze it, and it makes the Pac-Man sound when he's eating up the dots. The munching Pac-Man sound that we all know and love. And now for the one I did have, this Pac-Man board game. It was awesome. It was like living inside the arcade game. It was the Pac-Man game, but in 3D. You had Pac-Man, you had the ghosts, all right there where you could play with them. I never played this game, not the official way to play it. I would just get it out and play with the pieces and move Pac-Man around the board, saying, eating up all the ghosts and everything. Because when it came to board games, no one would ever play them with me. My brother and sister were a little older. They didn't want to play these little kid games I had. And no one would ever play board games with me. But it's okay, I would find my own way to play with them.
The best way to Pac-Man is to use the game. You move the joystick and you eat the dots.
Now let's look at 5 just weird, scratch your head, why they make this, or that's just creepy Pac-Man merchandise from the early 80s. We're going to start with one that's not too bad. It's going to get worse as it goes. This is a PacMan Bed Sheet and pillowcase for the ultimate Pac-Man fan, I guess. Can you imagine going to your best friend's house and this was his bed setup? A pillowcase with Pac-Man and a bed sheet with Pac-Man? I ain't gonna lie to you, it's not that bad. I just wouldn't want my friends to see it. But I tell you, at night, I wouldn't be trying to get to sleep. I would be using my finger like Pac-Man, going all over the mazes. Who would want a Pac-Man pillowcase and bed sheets? Oh yeah, that guy.
Pac-Man!
Now here's another Pac-Man toy that was strange because it's trying to look like Pac-Man, I guess, but it doesn't really look like Pac-Man. This was a PacMan Bank. You put the money in his hand and he shoves it in his mouth. Again, hey, at least he wouldn't put balls in his mouth this time. He was putting spare change. As you can see, they wanted to go with a Pac-Man look, but it looks more like a burglar to me than Pac-Man. In fact, this thing was released a few years earlier in a totally different name and look. See, here it is here. Looks nothing like Pac-Man, wrong color and everything. But what if you were hungry and you were a Pac-Man fan? I know you're going to say, ooh, the Pac-Man cereal, all right. Nope, this is some god-awful looking Pac-Man macaroni and cheese. Hey Mom, what's for dinner? Oh, we're going to have Chef Boyardee's Pac-Man macaroni and cheese dinner. All right, is it in the shape of Pac-Man? Kinda. It's more like a peace symbol. Or a Pac-Man with no middle. No middle? Aww. Are there at least beanie weenies in it? Nope, just mac and cheese. Aw, is it good? Well, it's got real cheese on it. Let me see the box. Oh no, you can't see the box because this crap looks horrible. And it looks this horrible in the box, you know it's gonna look even worse when you put it in the bowl. Now here's one I couldn't decide if it was really cool or really dorky. So I'm gonna let you decide. Growing up in the 80s, we loved the big wheel, and here it is, PacMan Power Cycle, aka PacMan Big Wheel. Is this cool to have? Would you have been the cool kid of the neighborhood if you had this? Well, I'm not really sure, but I tell you what, probably would have made it a lot cooler. Let's say you had this, and the girl next door was a Pac-Man fan also, so she had the Big Wheel Miss Pac-Man. Can you imagine cruising around the neighborhood, you on one and the little girl on the other? That would be awesome. Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man Big Wheel. Again, I don't know if that's awesome or dorky, but either way, I love it. So let's look at one more, and it is by far the creepiest thing we looked at throughout this whole video. It's Pac-Man and Miss PacMan Puppets, and be honest with you, I'm kind of even scared to look at it. I looked at it earlier when I was getting ready for this video. I don't know if I can look at it again. It's right over there on my computer monitor, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not looking at it. I'm trying to go out of memory here, but these things are god-awful, creepy, and scary. Probably scarier than that alcoholic licking cat we looked at in yesterday's video. This is god-awful scary. Why would they make this? What kid would want this creepy puppet? And let's say some puppeteer bought it for a puppet show. All right, Pac-Man's really popular. Let's buy a Pac-Man puppet and put on a puppet show for the kids. Every kid would be running out of that puppet show. Look at these things. Okay, did you look at it enough now? Was it creepy? What, you didn't find that creepy? What's wrong with you? You must be creepy yourself. Anyway, that's a look at some Pac-Man merchandise. Again, if you wasn't there in the 80s, you probably don't understand how huge and how popular Pac-Man was. It was one of the biggest things ever, at least in the early 80s. But that's a look at Pac-Man merchandise. In the comments, let me know which one of these Pac-Man merchandise items did you have? What did you want? What did you get? And say, man, this sucks. I thought it was going to be a lot better than that. Let me know that and more below. And I want to thank you for watching. As always, thumb up so you know like my content. Subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna go play some Pac-Man because I got a pocket full of quarters. I'm gonna go play some Pac-Man.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though. Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.